Lisa Martinez pressed her face against the small window of the transport ship. Outside, Kepler's station grew larger with each passing minute. The massive structure looked like a metal flower floating in space, with dozens of arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm held different sections of the Galactic Defense Academy, the most important military school in known space. She had dreamed of this moment for 3 years. When the acceptance letter arrived on Earth, her family had thrown a party that lasted 2 days. Only 12 humans had been chosen from millions of applicants across the galaxy. Lisa was one of them. The transport docked with a soft bump. Lisa grabbed her single bag and followed the other passengers through the airlock. The station's artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth's, making her steps bounce slightly. She would need time to get used to it. The arrival bay was enormous. Hundreds of beings moved through the space, speaking in dozens of languages. Lisa had studied alien species for years, but seeing them in person was different. A group of tall, blue-skinned Andromedans walked past, their movements smooth and graceful. Near the information desk, 3 Corellian warriors stood talking, their massive frames covered in natural armor that looked like living stone. Lisa found the cadet check-in counter and waited in line behind a nervous-looking Vegan whose tentacles kept changing colors. When her turn came, the desk officer, a human woman with tired eyes, smiled at her. "Welcome to hell, kid," the officer said quietly. "You're Lisa Martinez from the North American Federation?" "Yes, ma'am." "Your room assignment is here. You'll be sharing quarters with the other human cadet, Jake Morrison from Texas. Lucky you, at least you won't be alone." The officer handed her a data pad. "Word of advice, keep your head down and don't cause trouble. The other species already think we don't belong here." Lisa took the data pad and thanked the officer. As she walked away, she heard the woman mutter something about fresh meat for the grinder. The corridors of Kepler Station were wide and clean, designed to accommodate beings of different sizes and shapes. Moving walkways carried cadets and instructors between sections. Lisa found herself staring at everything. A group of insect-like hive queens clicked past, their compound eyes reflecting the corridor lights. 2 reptilian saurians discussed battle tactics in their hissing language. Room 847 was in the human section of the dormitory. Lisa pressed her palm to the scanner, and the door slid open. Inside, she found a young man about her age unpacking, clothes into a storage unit. He was tall with brown hair and an easy smile. "You must be my roommate," he said, turning around. "Jake Morrison, pleased to meet you." "Lisa Martinez. Nice to meet you too." Jake's room was already personalized. Pictures of Earth covered one wall, showing forests, oceans, and cities. A small American flag hung above his bed. On his desk sat a collection of old books, real paper books that must have cost a fortune to transport to space. "How long have you been here?" Lisa asked, setting her bag on the empty bed. 3 days. Arrived early to get settled." Jake sat on his bed and looked at her seriously. "I should warn you about a few things. The other species here don't think much of humans. They call us primitives behind our backs. Some of them aren't even that polite about it." Lisa had expected this. Earth was one of the newest members of the Galactic Council. Humans had only been in space for a few hundred years, while some species had been exploring the galaxy for thousands. She knew many aliens saw humans as children playing with dangerous toys. "Who's the worst?" she asked. "The Zephyrians, no question. They think they're the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their leader here is named Kethvar. He's some kind of noble back on their homeworld. Acts like we're insects that somehow learned to walk upright." Lisa had studied the Zephyrians in her preparation courses. They were tall and thin with crystalline skin that could change color based on their emotions. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than human normal, and their society was built around concepts of honor and martial perfection. They had never lost a war. "What about the instructors?" she asked. "Mixed group. Most of them are fair, but they don't understand humans very well. They expect us to think like them, fight like them, follow the same patterns. When we don't, they assume we're doing it wrong." Jake pulled out a tablet and showed her the class schedule. "Combat training starts tomorrow. That's where the real fun begins." Lisa spent the rest of the day exploring the station and getting her uniforms fitted. The dining hall was an experience in itself. Different sections served food appropriate for various species. The human section was small and crowded, mostly with instructors and support staff. Only 2 tables were set aside for cadets. At dinner, she met the other 10 human cadets. They were a mixed group from different parts of Earth and the colonies. Most seemed nervous but excited. A few looked like they were already having second thoughts. Jake introduced her to everyone and gave her the informal rundown on station politics. The Zephyrians were the unofficial leaders of the Cadet Corps. The Carillians respected strength above all else. The Andromedans were brilliant but cold. The Vegans were peaceful, but could be surprisingly vicious when threatened. The key is to remember that we're all here for the same reason, said Maria Santos, a cadet from the Mars colonies. We want to serve in the Galactic Fleet. We want to protect our worlds and explore new ones. The species differences don't matter as much as they want us to think. After dinner, Lisa and Jake returned to their room. Jake pulled out one of his, paper books and started reading. Lisa noticed it was a history of human warfare. Light reading? She asked. Jake looked up with a grin. Research. I've been studying how humans fight compared to other species. It's fascinating stuff. Most aliens follow very structured approaches to combat. Honor codes, traditional tactics, established patterns. Humans are different. How so? We adapt. We improvise. We'll use anything as a weapon and fight from any position. Most species see that as dishonorable or primitive. I think it's our greatest strength. Lisa thought about this as she prepared for bed. She had always been good at solving problems in unexpected ways. In her entrance exams, she had scored lower than other candidates on standard tactical problems, but much higher on scenarios that required creative thinking. The next morning came early. Combat training was held in a massive gymnasium with variable gravity and environmental controls. Instructor Vextai, an ancient Carillian with scars covering his stone-like skin, addressed the assembled cadets. Today, you begin learning to fight. As members of the Galactic Fleet, you will learn proper techniques, honorable conduct, and efficient methods. Those who cannot adapt will not survive the program. The cadets were divided into species groups for basic instruction. Lisa found herself in a circle with the other 11 humans, facing a junior instructor who looked barely older than they were. Humans are new to galactic combat, the instructor said. Your species has certain disadvantages. You are physically weaker than most others here. Your reflexes are slower. Your natural weapons are minimal. However, you are here because you showed potential in the entrance examinations. Lisa watched the other groups training nearby. The Zephyrians moved like dancers, their crystalline skin flashing different colors as they practiced elegant combat forms. The Carillians hit practice targets hard enough to shake the floor. The Andromedans moved in perfect synchronization, like parts of a machine. The humans looked clumsy by comparison. They stumbled over unfamiliar techniques and struggled to match the grace of other species. But Lisa noticed something else. When the instructor presented them with problems that had no obvious solutions, the humans found ways to solve them that the other species missed. During a break, Kethvar approached their group. He was tall even for a Zephyrian, with silver crystalline skin and eyes like cut gems. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone born to command. The human cadets, he said, looking at each of them in turn. I am curious about your presence here. Your species has contributed little to galactic civilization. Your military history is one of constant warfare among yourselves. What makes you think you can serve alongside your betters? The other human cadets looked uncomfortable. Lisa felt her temper rising but forced herself to stay calm. Jake, however, stepped forward. Maybe because we're not impressed by pretty speeches, he said. Actions matter more than words where I come from. Kethavar's skin darkened to deep purple, a sign of anger among his people. Your words show your primitive nature, human. Perhaps you would like to demonstrate these actions you speak of? The challenge was clear. Lisa saw the trap immediately. If Jake backed down, he would look weak. If he accepted, Kethavar would humiliate him in front of everyone. There was no good choice. Jake smiled and nodded. Sure, let's see what you've got. The practice mat felt cold under Jake's feet as he faced Kethvar. A circle of cadets formed around them, representing nearly every species in the academy. The Zephyrian towered over Jake by almost a foot, his crystalline skin now a deep blue. That meant confidence among his people. Instructor Vextai stepped between them. His massive Carillion frame blocked Jake's view of his opponent for a moment. This is a training exercise only. First contact or submission ends the match. No weapons, no permanent damage. Jake nodded and took a basic fighting stance. He had studied martial arts on Earth, but nothing had prepared him for fighting an alien with superhuman reflexes. Kethvar moved into what looked like a dance position. One arm raised high, the other low. His body balanced on the balls of his feet. The match lasted 8 seconds. Kethvar moved faster than Jake could follow. One moment the Zephyrian was across the mat. The next he was behind Jake with one arm around his throat. Jake tried to break free, but it was like fighting smoke. Every move he made, Kethvar had already anticipated and countered. When Jake tapped out gasping for air, the alien cadets murmured approval. The humans looked embarrassed. Kethvar helped Jake to his feet with mock courtesy. A brave attempt, Kethvar said loud enough for everyone to hear. Perhaps with many years of training, humans might become adequate warriors. Jake's face turned red, but he kept his mouth shut. Lisa watched him carefully. She knew that look. Jake was thinking, planning something. That worried her more than his embarrassment. The rest of the day passed slowly. In tactics class, the human cadets struggled with standard galactic military doctrine. The textbooks assumed certain physical capabilities and reaction times that humans simply did not possess. In engineering, they fell behind on calculations that other species completed easily, due to their enhanced mental processing. By evening, Lisa felt exhausted and discouraged. The dining hall was quieter than usual. Even the instructors seemed to be watching the human table more carefully. "This is harder than I expected," admitted Carlos Rivera, one of the cadets from the European Federation. "Maybe we're not ready for this." "Speak for yourself," Jake said, cutting into his synthetic protein with more force than necessary. "I didn't come here to quit after one day." "Jake, be realistic," said Maria Santos. "Did you see how fast Kethvar moved? We can't compete with that kind of physical advantage." Jake put down his fork and looked at her seriously. "You're thinking about this wrong. They're faster, stronger, tougher than us. So what? Earth history is full of examples where the physically superior force lost to the smarter one." Lisa had been thinking the same thing, but she was not sure it applied here. "This isn't Earth history, Jake. These are species that have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They know every trick we might try." "Do they?" Jake pulled out his tablet and showed them a tactical problem from that afternoon's class. "Look at this scenario. Standard galactic doctrine says you attack from the high ground with superior numbers. Every species here gave the same answer. But what if you don't have superior numbers? What if the high ground is a trap?" He sketched an alternative solution on the tablet. Instead of a direct assault, his plan involved a fake retreat, hidden explosives, and attacking from below through maintenance tunnels. It was sneaky, underhanded, and completely contrary to everything they had been taught. "That's not honorable combat," said Tom Walsh from the Australian colonies. "No galactic military would approve tactics like that." "Maybe that's our advantage," Jake said. "They're so focused on honor and proper procedure that they can't see other possibilities." Lisa studied Jake's plan. It was clever, she had to admit. It also felt wrong somehow, like cheating. But war was not a game with rules, was it? The goal was to win, to protect your people, to come home alive. Over the following weeks, life at the academy settled into a difficult routine. The human cadets worked twice as hard as everyone else and still fell behind in most subjects. Equipment seemed to malfunction more often during their training sessions. Their test scores were marked more harshly than other students with similar answers. Lisa began to notice patterns. When humans were paired with alien cadets for group projects, they were always given the least important roles. When teams were chosen for competitions, humans were picked last. When accidents happened during training, they happened more often, to human cadets. The worst part was that most of it could not be proven. A missed communication during a dangerous exercise could be an honest mistake. A computer glitch that deleted human assignments could be random. A training weapon that malfunctioned and injured a human cadet could be simple bad luck, but it was not random. Lisa was sure of it. Jake was sure of it too, and he was getting angry. His scores in individual subjects remained high, but his attitude was becoming a problem. He questioned instructors more often, challenged established procedures, and suggested alternative approaches that made alien cadets uncomfortable. "You need to be more careful," Lisa warned him one evening as they studied in their room. "You're making enemies." "I'm making them nervous," Jake corrected. "There's a difference. They don't like that I won't just accept their way of doing things. Maybe their way works because it's been tested over centuries of warfare." Jake looked up from his tactical analysis homework. "Lisa, do you know what the Zephyrian military doctrine is based on?" She shook her head. "Single combat between champions. Their entire strategic philosophy comes from the idea that wars should be decided by the best warriors fighting honorably. It worked great when everyone agreed to fight that way. But what happens when you face an enemy who doesn't care about honor?" Lisa thought about Earth's military history. Some of humanity's greatest victories had come from refusing to fight fair. But those were desperate times against overwhelming odds. Here at the Academy, they were supposed to be learning to work together with other species, not against them. The breaking point came during a joint training exercise in the 4th week. Human and alien cadets were mixed into teams and assigned to capture a fortified position. Lisa found herself on a team with 2 Zephyrians, a Carillion, and an Andromedan. Jake was on the opposing team with a similar mix. The exercise was supposed to last 4 hours. Lisa's team was assigned to defend the fortress while Jake's team attacked. Standard doctrine called for the defenders to hold the walls, while the attackers tried to breach them through superior force or clever maneuvering. For the first 2 hours, everything went according to plan. Jake's team probed the defenses, looking for weaknesses. Lisa's team responded with textbook defensive moves. The instructors watched approvingly as both sides demonstrated proper tactical knowledge. Then Jake did something unexpected. Instead of continuing the assault, his team disappeared. For 30 minutes, the defenders waited for an attack that never came. The instructors looked confused. This was not how the exercise was supposed to work. Lisa realized what Jake was doing just before it happened. While everyone was focused on the fortress, Jake had led his team through the service tunnels underneath the training area. They emerged behind the instructor observation post and captured it, effectively taking control of the entire exercise from the outside. The Zephyrian team leader, Kethvar's cousin Zethmar, was furious. "This is not proper military conduct. The objective was to capture the fortress, not to ignore it entirely." "The objective was to win," Jake replied calmly. "Mission accomplished." Instructor Vextai studied the situation for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Victory achieved through unconventional means. Exercise concluded." But Lisa could see the anger in the alien cadets' faces. Jake had not just won the exercise, he had made them look foolish. He had proven that their superior training and doctrine could be defeated by someone willing to ignore the rules they lived by. That night, Jake's personal equipment was sabotaged. His training weapon discharged accidentally during practice, nearly taking his head off. His computer crashed, destroying weeks of work. His food synthesizer malfunctioned, leaving him sick for 2 days. Lisa helped him as much as she could, but she was facing her own problems. Her grades were being marked down for minor errors that other cadets got away with. Her training partners seemed to always be the ones who made mistakes that put her in danger. Her requests for additional study materials were denied or delayed. The message was clear. Humans were not welcome here. Jake's response was to work harder and push back more aggressively. He started questioning everything in class, challenging every assumption, suggesting alternatives to every standard procedure. He made it clear that he would not be intimidated or driven away. Lisa tried a different approach. She attempted to build relationships with individual alien cadets to prove that humans could fit in if given a chance. She volunteered for extra duties, helped struggling students with their work, and always followed proper protocols exactly. Neither approach worked. Jake's defiance made him a target for increasing hostility. Lisa's cooperation was seen as weakness and taken advantage of. The other human cadets found themselves caught in the middle, trying to survive in an environment that seemed designed to break them. By the end of the second month, 3 human cadets had dropped out of the program. The official reasons were academic failure, but Lisa knew better. The assignment came down through official channels on a Tuesday morning. Jake stared at the orders on his tablet, reading them twice to make sure he understood correctly. Asteroid Belt Patrol, he said to Lisa as she got ready for morning classes. 3 days routine security sweep of the mining facilities around Kepler Station. Lisa looked over his shoulder at the mission details. Something felt wrong about it immediately. Why are they sending cadets on patrol duty? That's usually handled by regular fleet personnel. Training exercise, according to this. We're supposed to learn about real fleet operations. Jake scrolled through the technical specifications. Small patrol craft, basic weapon systems, standard communication equipment. Who else is going? With you? Jake's expression darkened. Kethvar and 2 of his friends, Zethmar and Velton, all Zephyrians. Lisa felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Jake, this doesn't feel right. 3 Zephyrians and 1 human on an isolated patrol? After everything that's been happening? I know what you're thinking, but it's an official Academy mission. They can't just murder me and get away with it. There are procedures, oversight, communication protocols. Lisa was not convinced. Over the past month, the pressure on Jake had increased dramatically. His equipment failures had become more frequent and more dangerous. His grades were being marked down despite correct answers. Other cadets were encouraged to avoid contact with him. More troubling were the conversations she had overheard. Zephyrian cadets spoke in their own language, but Lisa had been studying it. They talked about Jake like he was a disease that needed to be cured. Some of their words had no direct translation to human languages, but they implied concepts of cleansing and purification. Request a different assignment, she said. Tell them you're sick or that you have family emergency. I won't run away from this, Lisa. If I back down now, they win. Every human who comes after us will face the same treatment or worse. Lisa understood his reasoning, but her instincts screamed that this was a trap. Then let me come with you. Request additional personnel for the mission. Jake shook his head. I already tried. The mission parameters are fixed. Besides, you have your advanced tactics exam tomorrow. You've been studying for weeks. That was true. The exam was important for her final grades. But Lisa would gladly fail every test if it meant keeping Jake safe. The patrol ship departed at 800 hours the next morning. Lisa watched from the observation deck as the small craft separated from Kepler Station and headed toward the asteroid belt. It looked fragile against the vast emptiness of space. She tried to focus on her exam, but concentration was impossible. The questions on tactical analysis and fleet coordination blurred together on her screen. Her mind kept returning to Jake and the 3 Zephyrians who had smiled too much when they boarded the patrol craft. During lunch break, she accessed the Academy's mission tracking system. The patrol ship was following its planned route through the outer asteroid belt. Communications were normal. Everything appeared routine. But Lisa had learned not to trust appearances at the Academy. She skipped her afternoon classes and went to the communication center. Using her cadet access codes, she pulled up the technical specifications for the patrol ship Jake was aboard. The vessel was 20 years old, minimally armed, with basic life support systems. Not the kind of ship you would choose for a dangerous mission. The asteroid belt around Kepler Station was mostly empty space with occasional chunks of rock and abandoned mining equipment. Most of the facilities had been shut down years ago when richer deposits were found elsewhere. Perfect place for an accident to happen, far from any witnesses. Lisa dug deeper into the mission files. The patrol route would take Jake's ship past 3 defunct mining stations. Two were completely dead, their power systems shut down decades ago. The third, Station Echo 7, was listed as abandoned but still had automated systems running for some reason. She cross-referenced Echo 7 with recent maintenance records. Someone had been there 2 weeks ago. The official report said it was routine systems inspection, but the timing bothered her. 2 weeks was just enough time to set up whatever trap they had planned for Jake. Lisa tried calling Jake's ship directly but got no response. The communication system showed his ship was too far away for normal cadet channels. She would need instructor-level access to reach him. Instructor Vextai was in his office reviewing training reports when Lisa knocked on his door. The ancient Carillion looked up from his work with mild curiosity. "Cadet Martinez, you should be in class." "Sir, I need to speak with you about the patrol mission. I think Cadet Morrison might be in danger." Vextai's stone-like features did not change expression. "Explain." Lisa told him about her research into the mission parameters, the abandoned mining station, and her suspicions about Jake's team members. As she spoke, she watched Vextai carefully. His face remained neutral, but his eyes grew more focused. "These are serious accusations, Cadet. Do you have proof of malicious intent?" "No, sir, just patterns and instincts. But Jake has been systematically targeted for weeks. This mission feels like the culmination of that campaign." Vextai was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he activated his communication console and attempted to contact Jake's patrol ship. Like Lisa, he got no response. "The ship is operating under communication silence protocols," he said. "Standard procedure for patrol missions." "Sir, with respect, nothing about this mission follows standard procedures. Cadets don't normally run solo patrols. Mixed species teams aren't usually sent on unsupervised missions, and the route takes them past facilities that should have been avoided for safety reasons." Vextai pulled up the mission files and studied them carefully. Lisa could see him making the same connections she had made. His expression grew darker as he read. "Wait here," he ordered, and left his office. Lisa spent the next hour pacing around the small room, imagining every terrible scenario that might be playing out in the asteroid belt. When Vextai returned, his face was grim. "I have spoken with Academy Command. The mission was approved through proper channels, but the authorization came from sources that are now difficult to trace. The patrol ship is currently out of communication range due to asteroid interference." "What does that mean?" "It means that if something happens to Cadet Morrison, it will be very difficult to prove it was anything other than an accident." Lisa felt the blood drain from her face. "We have to do something. Send a rescue ship, call the mission back, anything. I cannot authorize a rescue mission without evidence of actual danger. Academy regulations are very specific about interference with ongoing training exercises." Lisa wanted to scream at the bureaucratic nonsense, but she could see that Vextai was as frustrated as she was. The system was designed to prevent exactly the kind of intervention that might save Jake's life. "However," Vextai continued, "I can authorize a maintenance inspection of Station Echo 7. Routine safety check to ensure the automated systems are not hazardous to passing ships." Lisa understood immediately. A maintenance pod could reach the station in time to intercept the patrol ship. Theoretically, yes. But maintenance pods are single-person vehicles with minimal life support and no weapons. Anyone taking such a pod would be alone and defenseless if they encountered hostile forces. "I volunteer for the maintenance mission." Vextai studied her for a long moment. "Cadet Martinez, what I am about to tell you is not official Academy policy. The Zephyrians believe they are the galaxy's premier warrior race. They have never been defeated in open combat, and their honor code demands that they prove their superiority over any potential rivals. Humans are not rivals. We're barely a threat to anyone. That is precisely what makes them dangerous to Zephyrian thinking. If humans can succeed through unconventional methods, it calls into question the validity of their entire worldview. Some Zephyrians would rather eliminate that threat than face that possibility." Lisa thought about Jake's research into asymmetric warfare, his refusal to follow traditional combat doctrine, his insistence on finding alternative solutions to every problem. To someone like Kethvar, Jake represented everything that was wrong with allowing humans into galactic civilization. "The maintenance pod is fueled and ready in Bay 12, Vexatai said quietly. "The safety inspection of Echo 7 should begin immediately to ensure no hazards exist for the patrol mission." Lisa understood. Vextai could not officially send her to rescue Jake, but he could give her the tools to try. Whether she succeeded or failed would depend on her own skills and luck. She stood to leave, then turned back. "Sir, why are you helping?" "Me?" Vextai was quiet for a moment. "I have fought beside many species over my long career, Cadet Martinez. I have learned that courage and honor are not limited to any single race. Your friend Jake Morrison fights like a Carillion in spirit. Even if his methods are unconventional, that deserves respect." Lisa nodded and headed for the door. "Cadet," Vextai called after her. "Be careful. If my suspicions are correct, you will be facing opponents who believe they are preserving the natural order of the galaxy. That makes them extremely dangerous." Lisa ran through the corridors toward Bay 12, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. She had no weapons, no backup, and no official authority to intervene in the patrol mission. Lisa's maintenance pod drifted silently toward Station Echo 7. Through the small viewport, she could see the massive structure ahead, its metal framework dark against the stars. Emergency lights blinked along its outer hull, the only sign that power still flowed through its systems. She checked her scanner display. Jake's patrol ship was already docked at the station's main bay. No other vessels showed on her instruments, but that meant nothing. The asteroid field around the station provided plenty of hiding places. Lisa guided her pod to a service port on the station's lower level, far from the main docking bay. The pod's magnetic clamps engaged with a soft thud. She checked her suit's life support one more time, then opened the airlock. Station Echo 7 had been built to process rare metals from asteroid mining operations. The corridors were wide and functional, designed for moving heavy equipment rather than comfort. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. Lisa's footsteps echoed in the empty hallways. She found a maintenance terminal and plugged in her data pad. The station's computer system was old but still functional. According to the logs, someone had reactivated the automated defense systems 2 weeks ago. The systems were programmed to activate if unauthorized personnel entered certain restricted areas. Lisa studied the station layout on her pad. The main processing center was in the heart of the facility. That was where Jake would be taken if this was really a trap. The defense systems were concentrated around that area, designed to protect the station's most valuable equipment. She made her way through service tunnels and maintenance shafts, avoiding the main corridors where sensors might detect her. The station was larger than it had looked from outside. Getting to the center would take time she might not have. As she crawled through a ventilation shaft, she heard voices below. Lisa pressed her ear to the metal grating and listened carefully. 3 Zephyrians were talking in their own language, but she could understand most of it. "The human is examining the processing equipment as ordered," one voice said. "He suspects nothing." "When do we activate the defenses?" asked another. "Soon. We need to ensure the accident appears authentic. The human must seem to have triggered the systems through his own carelessness." Lisa's blood turned cold. They were planning to murder Jake and make it look like an accident. She had to reach him before they put their plan into action. She continued through the ventilation system until she reached the central processing area. Through a grating, she could see into the main chamber. Jake was standing in front of a massive control console, studying its displays. Kethvar and his 2 companions were positioned near the exits, blocking any escape routes. Jake looked calm, but Lisa could see tension in his posture. He knew something was wrong, but he was trapped with no way out. Lisa opened the grating as quietly as possible and lowered herself into a storage area adjacent to the main chamber. Through a small window, she watched as Kethvar approached Jake. "The inspection is complete," Kethvar announced. "We should return to the ship now." Jake did not move from the console. "Actually, I found something interesting here. These defense systems have been modified recently. Someone changed their programming." Lisa saw Kethvar's crystalline skin shift to a darker color. The Zephyrian was angry that Jake had discovered their preparations. "Equipment modifications are not our concern," Kethvar said. "We are here only to conduct a routine patrol." "Right," Jake said slowly. "Routine patrol of an abandoned station with recently modified weapons systems. That makes perfect sense." Lisa knew Jake was buying time trying to figure out his options, but there were no good options. 3 Zephyrians with superior reflexes and training against 1 human with nowhere to run. Kethvar nodded to his companions. Zethmar moved to a control panel while Veltan took a position near another exit. They were surrounding Jake completely. "I think there has been a misunderstanding," Kethvar said to Jake. "You are not here to conduct an inspection. You are here to die." Jake's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Veltan was faster. The Zephyrian's weapon appeared in his hand like magic, aimed directly at Jake's chest. "Do not make this more difficult than necessary," Kethvar continued. "The automated defenses will activate in moments. When your body is found, it will appear that you triggered them accidentally while exploring the station. A tragic training accident." Lisa watched in horror as Zethmar began entering commands into the control system. Red warning lights started, flashing throughout the chamber. An automated voice announced that defensive protocols were activating. Jake looked around the chamber, calculating his chances. Lisa could see him thinking the same thing she was. There was no way out. The Zephyrians had planned this perfectly. "Any last words?" Kethvar asked. Jake smiled grimly. "Yeah, you should have done your homework better." Lisa did not understand what he meant until Jake suddenly dove behind the control console. A second later, the chamber exploded into chaos. Jake had triggered something in the station's systems, but not the defense grid. Instead, he had activated the emergency venting procedures used to clear dangerous gases from the processing areas. Massive fans roared to life, creating hurricane-force winds throughout the chamber. The Zephyrians were caught completely off guard. Their enhanced reflexes meant nothing against environmental hazards they had not anticipated. Veltan was blown off his feet and slammed into a wall. Zethmar lost his grip on the control panel and tumbled across the floor. Only Kethvar managed to maintain his footing, but the wind made accurate shooting impossible. Jake used the chaos to reach a manual override panel and began shutting down systems throughout the station. Lisa realized this was her chance. While the Zephyrians were disoriented, she could even the odds. She grabbed a heavy tool from the storage area and smashed through the window separating her from the main chamber. Kethvar spun toward the new threat, his weapon tracking toward Lisa. But Jake had anticipated this moment. As soon as Kethvar's attention shifted, Jake tackled the Zephyrian from behind. The two of them crashed into the control console in a tangle of arms and legs. Kethvar was stronger and faster, but Jake fought with the desperation of someone who knew he was going to die anyway. Lisa ran toward Veltan, who was struggling to get back on his feet. The Zephyrian was dazed from his impact with the wall, his movement sluggish. Lisa swung her tool at his head with all her strength. The blow sent Veltan sprawling unconscious. Lisa grabbed his weapon and turned to help Jake. Kethvar had broken, free from Jake's grip, and was raising his sidearm. Lisa fired without hesitation, but Zephyrian reflexes were incredible. Kethvar threw himself sideways, and her shot went wide. Jake lunged for Kethvar's weapon hand, trying to force it away from Lisa. The two of them struggled over the gun as Zethmar finally regained his footing and drew his own weapon. Lisa shot at Zethmar, but her aim was poor and the weapon was unfamiliar. Her shot sparked off the metal walls as the Zephyrian took cover behind a support pillar. During the firefight, something terrible happened. Kethvar's weapon discharged during his struggle with Jake. The energy bolt caught Jake in the chest. At point-blank range, Lisa watched in horror as her friend collapsed, his body going limp instantly. Kethvar pushed Jake's corpse aside and turned his weapon toward Lisa with cold satisfaction. "Two tragic accidents," he said. "Even better than we planned." In that moment, something fundamental changed in Lisa Martinez. All the careful control she had maintained during months of abuse and discrimination simply vanished. The academy training that taught her to think tactically and follow proper procedures disappeared. She was no longer a cadet trying to prove herself worthy of galactic civilization. She was no longer concerned with honor or proper military conduct. She was no longer thinking about consequences or survival. Lisa Martinez became something the galaxy had never seen before. A human being who had nothing left to lose. For exactly 23 seconds, she stopped being civilized. Kethavar was fast, trained and experienced, but he had never faced an enemy who fought without any concern for their own safety. Lisa threw herself at him with a scream of pure rage, ignoring his weapon completely. The energy bolt meant for her chest went wide as she crashed into him. They fell together, rolling across the floor in a savage struggle. Kethavar tried to use his superior strength, but Lisa fought like a wild animal. She bit his weapon hand until he dropped the gun. When he tried to throw her off, she grabbed a piece of broken metal and drove it into his shoulder. When he screamed and tried to crawl away, she followed him. Zethmar came out of cover to help his leader, but Lisa was ready for him. She had picked up Kethavar's weapon and was no longer concerned with accuracy or proper shooting technique. She fired until the weapon was empty, then beat Zethmar with it until he stopped moving. Kethavar was still alive when she returned to him, though, barely. His crystalline skin had turned the gray color that meant fear among his people. He tried to speak, probably to beg for mercy or claim this had all been a misunderstanding. Lisa was not interested in his explanations. When the automated systems finally shut down and emergency lighting returned to normal, the chamber was quiet, except for Lisa's heavy breathing. She knelt beside Jake's body, checking for any sign of life even though she knew it was hopeless. The rescue ship found Lisa's maintenance pod drifting near Station Echo 7 6 hours later. When the airlock opened, Commander Helix, a veteran Andromedan officer, stepped back in shock at what he saw. Lisa Martinez sat in the pilot's seat, covered in dried blood that was not her own. In her lap, she held a human skull with pieces of flesh still attached. Her eyes stared straight ahead without blinking. She had not moved or spoken since the rescue team made contact. Medical emergency, Commander Helix announced into his communicator. Get trauma specialist to Base 7 immediately. The medical team tried to take Jake's skull from Lisa, but her grip tightened until her knuckles turned white. When they persisted, she spoke for the first time in hours. No. He comes with me. Her voice was flat and cold, completely different from the eager young cadet who had arrived at the academy months earlier. The medical staff exchanged worried glances, but left the skull in her possession. During the trip back to Kepler Station, Lisa answered questions in short, factual sentences. Yes, she had gone to Station Echo 7. Yes, Cadet Morrison was dead. Yes, the 3 Zephyrian cadets were also dead. No, she did not require medical attention. When pressed for details about what had happened, Lisa simply handed over Jake's personal recorder. The device contained audio from the entire incident, including Kethavar's confession and the sounds of the battle that followed. Commander Helix played the recording in his private office with the Academy's senior staff present. The room was silent as they listened to Jake's murder and Lisa's 23 seconds of transformation. When the recording ended, nobody spoke for a long time. This is a disaster, finally said Dean Mortek, the Academy's Carillion administrator. 3 dead cadets from a prominent Zephyrian family. The political implications are enormous. The implications are clear, said Instructor Vexistai. Cadet Morrison was murdered, and Cadet Martinez defended herself. The Zephyrians created this situation through their own actions. It will not be seen that way by the Zephyrian government, Dean Mortek replied. They will demand justice for their dead citizens. They will claim this was an unprovoked attack by a primitive human. Commander Helix studied the faces around the room. What do you recommend? We suppress the recording, said Dean Mortek. Report it as a training accident. All 4 cadets died when station systems malfunctioned. Clean, simple, no one to blame. And Cadet Martinez? Asked Commander Helix. Medical discharge. Post-traumatic stress from the accident. She gets counseling and returns to Earth. We never speak of this again. Vextai stood up slowly, his massive frame filling the room. That would be a mistake. This incident reveals something important about humans that we need to understand. What it reveals is that humans are dangerous and unpredictable, Dean Mortek said. Exactly what many species have always suspected. No, Vextai corrected. It reveals that humans can be pushed too far. There is a difference. The debate continued for hours, but the decision was already made. The Academy's reputation was more important than truth or justice. The official report would list all 4 deaths as accidental, caused by malfunctioning automated systems. Lisa was confined to medical quarters while the politicians decided her fate. She spent 3 days sitting by the window, holding Jake's skull and staring out at the stars. Nurses brought food that she barely touched. Doctors asked questions that she answered with single words. On the 4th day, Vextai came to visit her. "How are you feeling, Cadet Martinez?" Lisa looked at him with those flat, cold eyes. "Empty." Vextai sat down across from her. "I have spoken with Academy leadership. They want to send you home to Earth with a medical discharge. The official story is that you suffered severe trauma during a training accident. And Jake, listed as killed in the same accident. His family will receive full honors and benefits." Lisa nodded slowly. "What about the truth?" "The truth is complicated. The recording proves what really happened, but using it would create a diplomatic crisis between humans and Zephyrians. War might follow. Maybe war should follow." Vextai studied her carefully. "Is that what Cadet Morrison would have wanted? To be the cause of a galactic conflict?" Lisa was quiet for a long time. Finally, she shook her head. Jake wanted humans to be accepted as equals. He wanted to prove we belonged here. Then perhaps there is another way to honor his memory. Vextai explained his alternative proposal. Instead of a medical discharge, Lisa would be quietly transferred to the Human Colonial Defense Force. Her academy records would show completion of the program with average grades. No mention would be made of the incident at Station Echo 7. The Colonial Defense Force needs officers who understand how to fight against overwhelming odds, Vextai said. Your experience has taught you things that cannot be learned in classrooms. What things? That sometimes the rules must be broken to achieve justice. That conventional tactics are not the only way to win. That humans have capabilities other species do not understand or expect. Lisa considered this offer. Returning to Earth meant safety and anonymity. Joining the Colonial Defense Force meant continuing to serve in space but away from the politics and prejudices of the Galactic Fleet. Why are you helping me? She asked. Because I believe Jake Morrison was right about humans. You do belong in space, fighting alongside other species, but you also need to remember what you learned in those 23 seconds. What did I learn? That there is a difference between fighting to win and fighting to make your enemies lose. Most species fight to achieve objectives. Humans fight to ensure their enemies cannot achieve theirs. That difference matters. Lisa accepted the transfer to the Colonial Defense Force. The graduation ceremony was small and private. She wore her dress uniform with Jake's skull carefully preserved in a special case that she carried with her. Dean Mortek made a brief speech about the tragic accident that had claimed 4 promising young lives. He spoke about the importance of safety protocols and proper procedures. He did not mention murder or revenge or the sound a human makes when they decide civilization is optional. After the ceremony, word spread quietly through the Academy's alien student body. The details were unclear, but the message was simple. Humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. The weak primitive species from Earth had capabilities that defied conventional understanding. Lisa's first assignment with the Colonial Defense Force was to a frontier world called New Dakota, where human settlers were being harassed by raiders from the Outer Rim. The attacks followed predictable patterns, hitting isolated farms and supply convoys according to established piracy tactics. Lisa studied the situation for 2 weeks, then requested a meeting with the colony's defense council. The raiders expect us to follow standard defensive procedures, she explained to the assembled farmers and militia leaders. They attack, we respond, they retreat to safety. It is a game with rules they understand. What do you suggest? asked the colony's leader, an older woman named Beth Carter. We changed the rules. Lisa's plan was simple and brutal. Instead of defending static positions, the colonists would abandon their farms temporarily and let the raiders think they had succeeded. When the pirates came to loot the empty settlements, they would find that the humans had turned their own homes into traps. "You want us to booby-trap our own property?" asked one farmer. "I want you to make your enemies pay a price they did not expect," Lisa replied. "Every building they enter, every piece of equipment they touch, every road they travel becomes a weapon against them." The plan worked perfectly. The raiders arrived expecting easy targets and found a nightmare of hidden explosives, collapsing structures, and mechanical traps that defied their understanding of civilized warfare. Those who survived fled the system and never returned. News of the victory spread throughout the Colonial Defense Force and beyond. Other human colonies requested Lisa's assistance with their own security problems. Each time she applied the same principle: make the enemy's advantages irrelevant by refusing to fight according to their expectations. Within 2 years, Lisa Martinez had become a legend among human military circles. Officers studied her tactics in classified briefings. Soldiers told stories about the cadet who had walked out of an alien death trap carrying her friend's skull and covered in enemy blood. More importantly, alien species throughout the galaxy began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. The weak primitive race from Earth had produced something unprecedented: a military mind that combined advanced strategic thinking with a willingness to embrace controlled chaos when necessary. The Zephyrians were particularly affected by these developments. Their military doctrine, based on honor and traditional tactics, proved ineffective against human forces trained in Lisa's methods. Several territorial disputes near human space were quietly resolved in humanity's favor, as alien governments decided that fighting humans was more trouble than it was worth. Lisa kept Jake's skull with her throughout her career, a reminder of the price of underestimating human determination. She never spoke publicly about what had happened at Station Echo 7, but she never forgot the lessons learned in those 23 seconds. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were capable of when pushed beyond their limits. Lisa Martinez had shown them.